Hello everyone, welcome back to my another video. So I'm doing a series on MonStack. So this is going to be a progressive series, so we're not going to do everything at once, rather we will progress, like bits by bits. And I wanted to make this video to kind of get you familiar with what we will be building on coming episodes. That's what we will be looking into today, and we will also be looking into how we will be setting up our basic web server on Express. We will be using MonStack, meaning, so if you don't know what MonStack means, it's a design pattern basically. It's going to consist of four things: MongoDB, Express, React, and Node.js. This is a really popular design pattern to make modern web apps, and that's what we will be focusing on this entire series. So if you guys enjoy this kind of content on the channel, please subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit that notification bell and give a thumbs up to the video if you find it really helpful. Without further ado, let's get started. So before even setting up our web server, what we will be looking at is there are a few requirements that you need to have before jumping into this project. The couple of things that I wanted to stress out first was you want to have npm installed on your machine. In order to find out, you can just go to terminal and do npm-v. That should give you the current version number of npm installed. And you want to have node installed on your machine as well. If you do node-v, you'll get the nodes version. So once you have that set up, you should be good on your local setup. I mean, almost. So the next thing that you need is you want to go to this URL. So basically, this is a cloud-based MongoDB. So it's hosted on cloud, so you don't need to worry about hosting your own database. That's why we'll be using this one. Don't worry about the link. I will add everything in the description below. You want to create your account. You can create your free account. You don't need to put your credit cards or anything there. So that's the first requirement. And the second requirement is you want to create your account on Heroku. This is the place where we will be hosting our backend and frontend. This is just the hosting side. It allows us, allows us to host our web apps or our backend applications for free. So that's why we will be using this one. If you are familiar with Firebase, you can use those as well. But on this video, we'll be looking into Heroku. And another thing that you need is you want to install Postman. You can use a regular REST client from VS Code extension. I haven't used that actually, so I'm not really familiar with that one. So I'll be using Postman on this series. So if you just install Postman on your machine, it's going to be easier for you guys to follow all of the things what I'm doing and what I'm testing on. So you want to have that installed as well. And if I'm not wrong, I think that should be it in terms of what you need to get started on this series. So I will stress out one thing. So you don't need to have any sort of prior knowledge of this frameworks or languages. I mean, if you have, it's really good, but this is going to be super beginner friendly, so I'll go in depth for all of the topics that I'll be introducing. Now, in terms of what we'll be doing is, let's start with Express and MongoDB. Let's start with the backend. On backend side, as we already discussed, we're going to be using Express. So if you don't know what Express is, so it is a Node.js framework. You can use core Node.js, but Express makes a lot more easier to handle various things on backend. So we will be using Express for that one. For database, we will be using NoSQL database. We'll be using MongoDB. And on the UI side, we will be using React. And in addition to React, what you will also learn on this series is you will learn Redux Toolkit, which is a lightweight library built on top of Redux. It's really good. You don't have to write a lot of boilerplate code. that you need to, like if you just use React, if you are, like past experience with React, like just think about, like what are the stuff, right, that we need to write in order to just, like get started with it. Redux Toolkit helps, like a lot on those scenarios. So we'll be using that. And to get our, like ready-made components, we will be using Material UI. And to style our components, we will be using styled components from Material UI as well. So these are the tech stacks that you'll be learning if you follow this tutorial. I think that was it in terms of all of the overview of what we will be doing. So now we will start by setting up our web server. On this series, we will complete our backend, and then we will move on to UI portion. And I think if I don't miss up anything, that should be it. Oh, one more thing. So we'll be creating a to-do list, but what you will also learn over here is JWT token. So what JWT token does is, let's see if I can go to Google JWT token, jwt.io. So we will be using JWT tokens in order to authorize our users. And what it makes us to do is it helps us to create a protected routes. Let's say, for example, of our, like let's say we're creating a app to generate, like to-do list, right? You don't want to, let's say I'm the user 1 and there is a, let's say, user 2. If the user 1 added some sort of to-do list, you don't want to show those to-do lists to user 2, right? Because that belongs to user 1. And JWT token helps us to do that, and basically it helps with authentication and authorization. So we'll be learning that one as well on this series. I think that should be it for now. And if I, like have missed something, I will be, explaining you guys on the later in the video. Now let's initialize our project with npm. So right now on VS Code on your left, I don't have, like anything in there. So I want to initialize my project. To initialize the project using npm, you want to do npm init, and if you press enter after this command, it's going to ask you to add all of the manual things, but for this video we're just going to do npm test-y, which will create a sample package.json for us. So if I go here, I should see a simple boilerplate package.json file. Okay, now that is good. Let's clear that one out. And I'm gonna be pushing this code into GitHub, so I will create a new file called .gitignore. And on that file, let me copy the snippet of code. Let's see here. Okay, so that way when we initialize the Git, it will, like help me a lot, because otherwise it's gonna track, like as soon as we install dependencies, it's gonna track node modules folder, which I don't want. I think these are the contents should be good, but I do want to install o.env. It's already there, so nice. Yep, we're good there as well. Now let's initialize the git init. Right, that is done. Now let's install dependencies. So I'm gonna do npm I. So the first dependency that we need is Express itself, and the second dependency is gonna be Mongoose. So Mongoose has, like bunch of useful functions which are really helpful whenever we are interacting with our cloud database. And so that's why we need that package. And another one is .env. This helps us to create our environment variables, because let's say if you have MongoDB secret, JWT token secret, you don't want to put it inside your regular files, right? You want to create a file such as, like .env and put those in there. And this .env package helps us to, like extract those from those files into our regular files. And we need course. So this library is needed whenever we are about to use our endpoints when we create those REST endpoints, right? We need to use those on UI. This helps us to whitelist our domain. So if you don't know what course error means, is it's basically let's say if you have some kind of thing hosted on google.com, and if you're trying to make a request outside of google.com to that server, you need to whitelist those domains first, because browsers run, or web servers run on the same origin policy, and this library helps to whitelist our UI domain basically whenever we are calling them. And the next package that we need is body parser. We'll be using this one whenever we are submitting the form from UI. This is really helpful to parse out the request object. I think that should be it. Let's press enter. While we wait for the installation, I will create a new folder called source on root directory, and I'm going to create a file called index.js, because we mentioned that is going to be the entry point of our file. Okay, now let's see, let's clear that one, and I think we need one more dev dependency, that is going to be Nodemon. So the only purpose of Nodemon is you can run this your backend just using Node by doing Node space name of the file. But what Nodemon does is, as soon as you make a change to your file, it constantly watches your server, right? It's gonna automatically restart your server, so that you don't have to close and open your server back and forth. So we're gonna install that, and while we are here, we're gonna set up our scripts. I'm gonna get rid of this test and name it as start, and it's gonna basically say node, and I'm trying to run index.js file because that's our entry point, so I'm just gonna say source / index.js. Okay, that should know what where to find out that file. And the next script is going to be dev. So basically we'll be using Nodemon that we just install, and we're going to simply point out to the same file. Okay, let's close this, clear this terminal. Now I think we're ready to set up our web server on our index.js file. And inside that index.js file, what we will be doing is we will be setting up our Express server. And for this video, we will be using CommonJS syntax. So if you want to use a regular, other imports, I think you have to do some sort of config on your package.json file in order to support that. But I'm not really familiar with that one, to be honest. So and I also like CommonJS syntax whenever I'm doing backend stuff. So I will be using CommonJS syntax. So let's get the Express out of require, and I'm gonna get it from Express. So basically this is like the import statement if you use require, and we are bringing Express from Express package that we installed earlier. And also I will need to import .env package that we installed earlier, and all you need to do in order to access the environment variables is just call the config function out of that package, and that's it. Now since we imported this Express, right, let's initialize the app out of it. So we can do something like const app equals to, and you can call that Express function, and it's going to initialize your Express app. As you know, being a web server, you have to constantly listen to all of the incoming requests, right? That's why you have to be always up, because if you're down, your users is going to be mad at you. So the way to start listening to requests is we're going to be using app, app, like this, like this app right here. And what we'll do is app, there is a function called listen, and it takes two arguments. One is going to be the port number where the app is going to listen to, and the other one is a callback function which is going to run as soon as app starts like listening to that port. So we can simply say port, don't worry about it, I'm going to define that port variable later on. And second argument is going to be a callback function. But for now, we can just simply do console.log, and I'm going to use string templates, server listening on port. I'm going to use a $, curly braces to insert JavaScript variables, and I can simply copy that port number. So now that is set up, I think we are, we need to declare this constants right here. I'm going to go here, I'm just going to say const port equals to, let's just say it is 3005. And if I do npm run start, as you can see, now it is listening on 3005. Now let's refresh the app. Okay, it's doing something, but it says cannot get /. So what does that mean? So what it means is it's trying to get the route on the base, like base URL, right? Like let's say if you're running on localhost 3005, if there is nothing in there, it means like just /. Let's see if I do /home here, it's gonna say cannot get home because we don't have that route yet. So what I will do now is I will set up a route for our home. The way to do it is we can make a use of this app again. So in order to make a use of app, or like set up a middleware. So basically, if you don't know what middleware means, right? Let's start with that. Basically, middlewares are the functions that runs like between request and response cycle. So let's say you are a client, you are a user, let's say you make some kind of request to web server. So that's your request. So when server receives that request, there is a middle person per se, which has access to both your request and the response that's about to go from the server. All of those things are handled by middlewares. So in order to use middlewares, what you need to do is you can do something like app.use, and what we will do now is we will just create a route, right? We're trying to create a route at home. So the first argument is you can provide the routes. You can just /, and then second argument is going to be a callback function which has arguments of request and response. And in this callback function, what we want to do is we want to do some kind of processing and send the response back from the server. And the way to send the response is, as we declare this response argument over here, we can use that one. We can do res.status. I'm going to say if everything went fine, I'm going to say status of 200 and .send. And I will provide a simple h1 tag for now saying hello world. Oops, not that one. Okay, let's save it and let's refresh the app. Okay, it's not doing anything. Although we set up our route, it's not taking our changes. The reason for that is, as I discussed earlier, if you're using Node to run your application, you have to constantly close and open your server every time you make a change. So that's why what we'll be doing while we're on dev phase is we're going to run the script called npm run dev, and here we're not using Node to run it. I mean, behind the scene we are using Node, but we're using Nodemon package. What this will do is it will, every time we make a change here, it will fire up the server. As you can see, now we can see hello world. Let's make a change here. Let's add a few more characters of this. As you can see, it restarted the server, and if I refresh this, you can see the changes. Okay, that's nice. Now, the thing that we'll fix now is this port. I mean, it's fine, like for when you're on local setup, like to use a static port. But when you deploy your app, you're not sure, right? Whether you're gonna get this port or not. Rather, your port is gonna get determined by the environment variables. So in order to create environment variables, what you need to do is create a new file on your root directory called .env. And inside this env file, we will create a variable called port. It's gonna be 3005, and go back here. Since we imported this .env package, what we could do is we can call a function called process dot env dot and the name that we specified. And we're going to use an OR operator, so basically 2 pipe signs. And once you save it, what it's doing is, while initializing the port, first we are checking, if there is an environment variable and if there is a port property in there, then grab a port property from there. Otherwise, use localhost, like this basically 3005. I will need to, restart the server. So every time you make a change on your .env file, you have to restart your server. So let me do that. Let me do npm run dev, and just to make sure this is working, I'm going to do 3006 and run it again. As you can see, it's running on 3006, so it's working. I'm going to switch back to 3005. Okay, if I refresh this, everything works as expected. I think that should be it for this video, because I don't want to make this series video is long. So it's going to be tough to grasp all of the information at once. So we're gonna build ourselves step by step. So I think that should be good enough for this episode. And yeah, I'll post this code on GitHub so that you guys can follow it up. But best way to do if you're really into Mon stack, the best way to do it is follow code along with me, so that way you don't miss out anything. And that is the that way you will learn it faster too, because you don't need to know a lot of terms while following with me. As soon as you keep on doing the same stuff over and over again, you will get used to with it, and you will know it with no time at all. Alright, I think I'm gonna end this video right here. On the next episode, we will be looking into creating routes on Express, and we're gonna create various routes based on, let's say, for authentication, or creating a to-do list. That's what we'll be learning on the next video. I think that should be it. Then I will catch you guys on the later video. So if you guys find this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel as well. Make sure you hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any future uploads. And I will catch you guys in the future video. Thanks.